Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of New Slang. I'm your host, music journalist Thomas Mooney, and today I am joined by singer-songwriter Tony Kamel of the Austin outfit Wood and Wire. I've known Tony for a while now, really ever since the beginning of the band. If you go back, you can probably find 2 or 3 old interviews with Tony back on New Slang, back when it was just a digital music blog. So yeah, it was obviously really great catching up with Tony. Wood and Wire just released a new album called No Matter Where It Goes From Here. If you remember, it was part of that big August 28th release date. What I like so much about Wood and Wire is how they're kind of a melting pot of a band. For most, Wood and Wire is easily going to be kind of categorized as just quote-unquote bluegrass. But a lot of their songs, they're shaped and they're influenced by the great singer-songwriters and storytellers of country, Americana, and the like. And their songs, they usually meet in the middle of those classic bluegrass elements, the mandolin and banjo, acoustic guitar, upright bass, and then of course these strong storytelling and narrative elements. Which, yes, I understand that can be a major cog in bluegrass as well, but what I'm saying is that there's a little bit more of a contemporary feel to them. You see it a lot in the songs like John, Pigs, Home in the Banjo, and My Hometown off this new album. And you also see a really great balance here as well. I think a lot of the songs on this album, there's this blend of introspective thoughts and outward cultural commentary. And of course, how those two can affect one another. Home in the Banjo and Pigs especially. A lot of times you expect these subjects to be serious in nature, and there is some seriousness, but they're also able to lighten the mood with some of that commentary. A lot of that is driven home with the expressions and the idioms used on Pigs, and then some of that commentary that happens on Home and the Banjo. Lines like bluegrass has gone MP3. There's a lot of character built with these kind of lines in those songs. And then of course, in saying all that, Wood and Wire, they're just ridiculously great players as well. So there is this incredible musicianship that shines really probably the brightest on the instrumental work. A perfect example of that is the album closing Clamp Chute. Anyway, I really enjoyed this conversation with Tony. We cover a lot of ground and talk about songwriting on a personal level, a lot of what happens on this album, and then a little bit more of a macro look at the music scene in general. Today's presenting sponsor is Desert Door Texas Sotol. If you know anything about me, it's probably that I'm from the heart of West Texas and absolutely love everything about West Texas. And that's really why I love Desert Door so much. You may be asking yourself what exactly Sotol is. Well, it's a premium spirit that's similar to a tequila or a mezcal, but for my money, it's a little bit more refined and smooth. There's a sweetness and faint hints of vanilla and citrus. And it's also as versatile as your garden variety vodka. At its core, Desert Door is authentically West Texas. They go out and harvest Sotol plants from the wild and bring them back to their distillery over in Driftwood, Texas. So next time you're at your local liquor store, get a bottle of Desert Door. For more info, check this episode's show notes. If this is your first time listening to New Slang, I strongly suggest hitting that subscribe link. If you just did, I'm giving you a virtual high five right now. New Slang is over on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, and basically any and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Go check out the New Slang merch store, grab a koozie, some stickers, buttons, and magnets. Any bit helps. I'll throw a link into the show notes. And if you're into playlists, go check out Tom Mooney's Cup of Coffee and the Neon Eon playlists over on Spotify. The Neon Eon is for all your nostalgic 90s country needs, which there's going to be more Neon Eon related stuff coming your way pretty soon. And then Tom Mooney's Cup of Coffee is a regularly updated mix of new Americana and country music. It's also a really great hint at who I have coming up on the podcast. So yeah, go follow those. All right, let's go ahead and get on to the interview. Here is Tony Kamel of Wood and Wire. So I guess we'll just go ahead and start off. You guys released this new record just a couple weeks ago, and that August 28th date was just a monster of a album release date. There was 5, 6, 7 albums of people that were, on that list of hey, you need to check these out today. I don't know how you're going to fit them all in, but check them all out today. Yeah, so like you guys obviously released this album, and like what was the plan, I guess, going in to release the album, but also due to the situation right now, the unfortunate events of 2020, what did that have any effect on what you guys had to do as far as the release date and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, kind of. There was a lot of different factors, actually. We're on a small record label out of Houston, and they have a employee in Nashville as well. It's real small, great label. Really like working with them. They're super artist centered. But the owner of the label and the head guy had to have a double lung transplant in February. And that was another factor. And that was right before the pandemic. And by then we kind of had it, we were in the mixing phases. And the plan, honestly, even with the ambiguity of not knowing how the record label would feel about timing, was to do it in the fall. And then, long story short, we didn't hear from him for a while. He was in recovery, and we didn't really even know how well he was doing. But then one day he called me, and then he called Billy, and he sounded like $1 million. Like, it was like he had come back from the dead or something.
Yeah.
And he was like, and we had discussed as a band, because of the pandemic, to push it to January or February, like a lot of people decided to do. And then after talking to him, he's like, no, I don't think so. Let's put it out. People need music. And we agreed. And we just decided collectively as a team that we should give the music to the people during this weird time. And just because we can't play shows, we didn't really see that as a reason not to release the music. I mean, we do play a lot of shows, and we love playing shows, but it's like Billy, our mandolin player, said, it kind of harkens back to the honest part of this business or world or music world, is that you want to make art and you want to put it out there. And, the financial or strategic reasons to do so shouldn't affect, your making of the art and sharing the art with the public. So we decided that this was a good time for people to hear it, and kind of felt like they needed it. And we thought maybe it could work to our advantage, because most people are at home, and people who really love music will pop it on and listen all the way through, and give it a good listen. So that was kind of our thinking. And yeah, it was a busy release day, and there are some fantastic records that came out that day. And, it's one way to look at it, that we were in a crowded field and might not have gotten a good look, but I was also just really happy to see so much good music coming out, because I had heard of a lot of people pushing their records to next year. And, there's no reason to think that February or March is going to be a hell of a lot different than it is now at this point. So,
right. Yeah.
So, it just felt like, let's just do it. Let's give it to the people. Once we're done with it, it's not ours anymore. It's theirs.
Yeah. Like the thing on that busy release date, I think sometimes that can be such a big help, because it's, even though it sounds the exact opposite, because like, let's say you got that one person who goes in and they hear about like this being a massive day, and then, 1, 2, 3 records in, they start buying them up, and like, they may just, I don't want to say splurge, but they may be buying up 5, 6 records that one day, just because of how the, I don't want to say necessarily the media, but like, just everyone kind of pushing that date is like, hey, you guys need to check it out this date, versus maybe them checking out, dismissing other days, just because that's not necessarily on their radar. So. Sure.
Yeah, it makes sense. And, but I got to tell you, man, when I saw the list of records coming out that day, I was like, oh my goodness, this is a big day.
Yeah.
And I was proud to be among the names. I thought, there's some records on there that I really enjoy. I thought Coulter Wall's record is really fantastic. And among others too, Zephaniah Uhura's got a cool sound. I've loved him for a long time, and I like his new record too. And And really, for us, we were the only bluegrass record that came out. And Molly Tuttle is a great singer and bluegrass guitarist, but she leans more towards indie rock or indie folk these days. And so for us, we were also the only sort of, I mean, I guess we don't have a traditional bluegrass sound, but we were the only one that's in the bluegrass category that came out that day. So we were also sitting on an island of sorts.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to the, do we release it now? Is it going to be better in January? Is it going to be any different? These last few months talking with people, it's been really just, I guess where we're studying this almost in real time, and no one has like a game plan that where there's the right answers. And it feels like early on back in March, people were putting their records off for like a month or two, hoping that like sometime in the late summer or early fall, around this time, that we would kind of be over a massive chunk of this and kind of getting back to a little bit of normalcy. But then, at some point, like I think we all kind of realized, oh, that's probably, a pipe dream at this point. And it's been just really interesting to see how people have handled their release dates, because I just feel for you guys, I empathize with this. Like, you guys have been working on this way longer than these past 6 months. Like, you guys just had it in the can kind of, and like, what do we do with it? And you don't want to sit on it for too long, because you guys kind of, like you put all this hard work into recording it and writing it and practicing and all of that, the stuff that goes into writing and creating. And sometimes it's like, we don't want to just like pass this moment. We don't want this moment to pass by, because at some point, we are creating other stuff, and we, what I mean? Like, you kind of want to give it its own time to get out. And sometimes it feels like you can let that moment, that phase of that time sometimes you can just let that pass by.
Right. Yeah. I think that I learned a while back that you can't control everything. There's actually very little you can control. For our part, we can control the music, and it kind of just came down to that. It's like, we're totally out of control here, and it seems like we're going to be for a while. And we put a lot of work into this thing. We're done with it, and we want people to hear it. And it was really that simple for us. It makes a big difference to have we work with a really, Bluecorn Music is the record label we're on, and they in full support of us just go ahead and put it out there. They didn't have profits or money or any of that stuff in mind. They wanted us to share the music with the world, and wanted us to do it the way we wanted to. And we're lucky that we're not dealing with the big machine. You know what I mean? I don't know how those bigger labels are dealing with it. I don't want to know how. It's not that's not what we do. If we wanted to be, signing with a big record label, probably wouldn't be playing bluegrass music, So it's all about freedom for us. We want to do what we want to do. We want to make the music we want to make, and we want to release it how we want to release it. And if we don't do exactly what we want to do, there's no way this band even works.
Yeah. Like the big machine aspect of it. I was talking with someone about, because like the Dixie Chicks, or the Chicks now, they pushed their record back. And, it was, to me, that's such, for them, like being on that kind of level, we were talking about, I guess the person was saying how they could just release that record. Like, they're so massive, it doesn't matter when they release it. They could release it tomorrow and it would sell 1 million records. And one of the things I was like, well, what I wonder is, when they're that giant, like just the logistics side of things, of like actually creating CDs, I guarantee you, like, they've not had like the manpower to be able to like actually create physical CDs for wherever they're selling them, in Target and Walmarts and stuff. And sure. I was like, I think that like that's probably more so why they had to push back the actual release date, is so they could guarantee that part, because that's something like we probably don't really think about when it comes to when you're an artist that massive, like all of
Right.
that part of the game, I guess.
Yeah. Who knows, man? I mean, it's, I certainly wish that sometimes I wish we had those problems, we got to get so many CDs out, and we don't have the manpower to do it. But, but yeah, I mean, there's a massive, even if they were independent artists of that size, there are independent artists that are much more popular than we are that would be thinking about the exact same thing. How are we going to get all this stuff done? And a lot of them do it on their own, but I think a lot of that stuff is happening automatically too. You can buy a CD off Amazon, or there are third party shipping places that handle all the merch for some bigger artists. And right. I think a lot of them are still up and running. We don't have those thought processes in our situation. And, yeah. I mean, we do it all by hand essentially, and happy to do it that way.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a little bit of New Slang merch out there, and like, it's the same thing. Like, it's all here in my office. So it's anytime you order something and it's not many orders, it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Here, let's throw it in an envelope.
It's all over my house. My wife is like, when can you get rid of this shit, man?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, we're trying to come up with, I mean, look, we're always trying to figure out how to make a living playing music. The vast majority of us in the music world, as you know, are in the middle class. We're not making shit tons of money, but we're not necessarily starving, or at least we weren't before. And
right.
We're in this middle class world where that's where the vast majority of musicians live, in this middle class of music. And, I'm happy to be there at all. I'm happy to be doing it, but that's the deal. It's like this kind of a situation. It's tough on the vast majority of us in that category. And so, I mean, trying to strategize around the whole thing, it's almost pointless, because right. You're just throwing it out there. I'm just rambling now because I'm not even sure how to wrap my head around what we're looking at over the next year. We've just sort of thrown it all into the wind, like whatever happens, happens. I really hope people like the record and it permeates. One of the positives I can see is that people will listen to the recorded music and really enjoy it and wear it out. And then down the line, when we can play a big show, they really want to hear the songs. We're a song-centered band, and they want to. I really hope they want to hear the songs live.
Yeah, well, like that may be one of those things that we're not even necessarily. It may be like one of those little silver linings of all this too. Is like, how often have you played a show where, I guess it's that cliche joke about, oh, we got a new one, and then everyone kind of goes to go get a bar, or goes to the bar to get a drink,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
What about like this in 6-8 months? They're already familiar with these new songs, So that may be one of those little added bonuses that we can all take from this, I guess,
I hope so, man, because you know how it is. I mean, how it's always been. You put out a record, then you tour, and the record's been out a few weeks, and it takes a while for me personally to I like to listen to records 5-6 times and
right.
really get to know them. And, I think there are a lot of fans in our world that like that too. And I think, if we're lucky and we can get back sooner than later, that's what I'm hoping for, is that they really know these songs. They'll be singing along and ready for them, as opposed to, hey, let me play this stuff that you guys have basically never heard before.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to that. And in the meantime, we'll just do whatever we need to do. If I need to get a job, that's no big deal. I've always been down to get a job if it means I can keep playing music. I mean, I see it as a necessity. If that's a necessity for me to keep doing this, then I'll do it for a while. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Some people see it as a big failure, but I mean, a lot of the best musicians out there are craftsmen of sorts, or they have another skill that they do on the side, and
mm-hmm.
I don't want to be any exception to that. I'm totally down to get my hands dirty and work. That's what I did for a long time. And then I took a buttoned up sales job. I don't want to go back to that, but I'd like to find some kind of a way to work with my hands and work outside and get dirty for a while, learn some new skills and things like that. You know, I'm fine with that as long as down the line I can get back to doing this and bringing the music to people. And I think the guys in the band agree. You know, we all want to do this for a living, but it ebbs and flows for people in the middle class of music. You know, I mean, all these guys you talk to, a lot of them have other stuff they're interested in. You know,
right.
Coulter Walls runs cattle. You know, and a lot of these. I mean, just everyone has other parts of their lives that they don't talk about that much. You know what I mean? So I think we're all kind of looking at that as a place to be for a little while. But I think most of us want to get back to doing this most of the time.
This episode is in part brought to you by the Blue Light Live here in Lubbock, Texas. While Blue Light is still closed due to the pandemic, there is a way to help A, support Blue Light, and B, get a sense of that normalcy by visiting bluelightlubbock.com, clicking on the merch tab, and getting some koozies, a vast array of t-shirts and caps, and yes, even a Blue Light flag. While it is such a bummer that live music is still on hold right now, I'm telling you, by getting some Blue Light Live merch, you're going to feel better. It just feels better wearing a t-shirt and ball cap and helping support your favorite bar. Again, that's bluelightlubbock.com. Click on the merch tab, get some merch. All right, back to the episode. Yeah. Well, you know, one of the big things that's, I guess, been a revelation for me has been talking with somebody like Terry Allen, because, you know, I think it's so easy to just kind of fixate on you guys. Oh, you're a guitar player. You're a songwriter. You're a painter. And talking with him, it's never been like that. It's never been like this. I'm just this. I'm an artist, you know, and whatever it is that's made me want to create, it tells me, you know. And so I think a lot of times, we kind of fixate on this person being a singer-songwriter or a musician. And if you've ever looked back through time, even just in anybody that you've in this music scene, you know that they're creative and talented in other forms, right? Like even just right. Like that with Terry, right? He's painting and he's sculpting, or like Joe Ely, he's writing poetry and writing books. And you know, like Guy Clark, I think like him building guitars, that's like he, you know, right. did he do that as his full-time thing? No, but like I guarantee you building a guitar helps you be a better songwriter. And I think like talking with a lot of people during this, the people who have been the most productive have been able to channel all that energy into other little things that have hopefully are going to help them be better creatives down the line. What is there? Has there been something for you?
Exactly.
Has there been anything specific for you that you've kind of focused on, or during this time, or what's kind of been driving you to as far as being on the creative side and production, I guess, productive?
Yeah, I think a lot of us musicians, when we ended up in this situation, we really didn't. A lot of us songwriters really, we didn't really feel like writing. You know, I think we felt this weird pressure to be like, hey, well, now you got all this time off, let's get to work. But I don't write that way, and I think a lot of songwriters don't write that way. We get inspiration, and it comes in waves, and we just ride the waves real hard when they come. For my part, I spent the first month just kind of stressed out about it and anxious about the future. And I pick up a guitar and try to force a song out. When I try to force it, it just sucks. It's not good, you know? And so I put it away, and I had some fun doing some live streams. I had a good time doing some solo live streams, and I enjoy doing solo stuff and all that. But what really kind of centered me was we have a my family's got some property in Llano, Texas, been in the family since the 70s. And, the house is old and it was built by my granddad and his buddies, and they weren't, master builders. So it's got problems, and I had plenty of work to do out there. So I'd go out there and just sort of meditate on that for a while and work on the land. And I love it out there, and do some fly fishing and just enjoy it, and, take part in some psychoactive experiences, and just sort of let myself understand that nothing's going to be the same, and it never will be, and let myself relax into whatever the future might hold. And that has started to bubble up some inspiration. So I've been going there a lot, and spend a lot of time with my wife, which I've really enjoyed. I've spent a summer home in 5 or 6 years, and that's all been good. And honestly, I'm just now starting to feel the creative waves kind of coming back now that this record's out there. It feels like it's time for me to try to get that spark going again, and I can feel it again. So when that happens, I'll go back out to the ranch alone, and usually I'll spend a couple of days there just by myself, writing, and I'll write. I'll spend like the first morning just free form writing, just spitting out random words. Is something I learned to do in a book I read. It kind of helps clear the creative mind, I think. And I kind of thought it was cheesy at first, but it actually really worked for me. Mm-hmm. Is just basically free form writing for 20, 30 minutes or an hour, as long as it goes. And then I'll drive around and do some work. And then I'll sit down and go through my phone, because I think a lot of us will sing melodies into our phone when we hear. I'm personally a melody first songwriter. I'll hear a melody, hum it into my phone, or gibberish, sing it into my phone, and then reference it later. But I'll write things down that I want to write about, or little lines here and there as they come to me, hooks. I'll just put all that stuff together and buckle down. But I only buckle down and work hard on it when I'm ready, when I feel like it, when I've done stuff outside of music that can let my mind relax and find some inspiration. Maybe it's the same places of people, weirdos and stuff that have inspired me before, like the Gulf Coast is a real inspiration for me, and the hill country for sure, but my family and friends and people. I like to write about people a lot. And but you can find new angles and new places and new people as well. But I only go into that place in my mind when I'm ready. I know songwriters that try to write a song a day, and I'm just not that kind of songwriter. And frankly, most of my favorite songwriters kind of aren't, and
right.
And they do other stuff. I think there are a lot of songwriters. It's kind of like the opposite of what we're talking about. I mean, they live and breathe it so deeply. Sometimes they overthink it, and I'm certainly guilty of that too. Like, I overthink my songs all the time. But I found my best stuff comes, and I've learned from a lot of my friends that I really respect. They're similar in that they when they're relaxed and have spent some time away from music is when they get the best stuff.
Yeah, like a lot of that. It's funny because I think that, a year ago you ask somebody who's a creative, like, what's the one thing that could help your art? And they would probably say time. And, it's like, oh, here's on the silver platter, here's all this time to work on something. But it as you said, like it kind of doesn't work like that. And I what I'm interested in is seeing how, I think, again, like we kind of like put it in a box as far as like, oh, you wrote this song, and when you're writing a song, it's when you pick up the guitar, pick up the pen and paper, and start physically writing it. But what I think that like we've learned so much more about is how a lot of the writing is taken place like long before you've ever, started actually putting it down. Like it's you talked a little bit about this like clear conscious part, and to me that's like pure shower thoughts. You know what I mean? Like whenever you're kind of doing something else and it's helped where for me, like it's always like washing dishes or like folding laundry or just like picking up around the house. That's whenever I'm probably like just stuff that's so easy to do, but you're not really focused on. And that's whenever your mind's just able to like freely think. And I think like that adds so much to the actual. It makes it easier, I guess, maybe to whenever you do actually pick up the instruments to jot down the song.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question about it. There's no question about it. Your mind, and I'm speaking for myself here, you know, people, there's so many different methods of songwriting. There's so many different people that do it really well, that do it completely differently. But for me, that's exactly right. And you're a writer too. So you may have a similar approach. But I've got to be in the right place. Yeah, I've certainly forced a few songs. Like, you know, someone will say, "Hey, write a song for this," and if I'm excited about what it's for, then I might be able to get one out that I really like. And a lot of my favorite songs of mine came out really quickly. But as a whole, on a macro level, it's a much more meta thing. It's like I have to be in the right place and ready to like go through the painful part of it, because frankly, I love songwriting. I love it, but I don't always like it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I love that I wrote this song, that I went to. It could be a really happy place. It could be a nostalgic place. It could be a really difficult, sad place, an angry place. I love that I went there and worked through it. I'm proud that I, tried to put those thoughts on the page. And I'm not saying that I write deep songs every time. You know, I mean, I like writing songs about silly stuff too, and funny songs and stuff like that. And but it's just not always fun. You know what I mean? It's just not always. It's a craft, and tons of songwriters have said this because it's true. It's more of a craft. It's something you work on. I don't want to be pretentious about it at all, because it's also not that big a deal. But for me personally, it's like I don't always like it, but I love that that I did it. And I don't think I heard this quote recently. I'm not sure who actually said it, but I think Harold Ramis, this comedian actor that I loved, and people know who he is. He was Egon in the Ghostbusters and directed Caddyshack and all that. He said, and I think he was quoting someone else, but he's like, I don't love writing, but I love having written. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's not even like a love-hate thing. It's just a place that it can be frustrating. You know, you want to be able to, we've done it as songwriters. Most of us have done it where we sit down and we write a great song in like 20 or 30 minutes. It happens, right? And a lot of times those are the ones that are really, really good. But when that's not happening, it can be just frustrating to like find the right thing and make it sound unique. And the more that I write personally, the more I don't like what I've written written now, because I don't want to like repeat what I've done before, you know? So, but in any case, it's like, it's just what I'm going to do. And I'm going to go through those, the pain and the joy of it, you know, and I'm making it sound bigger and kind of pompous the way I'm talking about it. And I don't mean to, because it's really not that big a deal, you know, to be writing songs in my mind. I don't like to give it this weight, even though it's something that you and I really love and respect as a craft that so many of our heroes have done over the years. It's also like, sometimes I write a song and I'm like, oh, that's a cool song. I like it. But then I'll meet someone who's like, man, that song changed my life, or something like that. You know, that song really helped me through a bad time. To me, it's like, well, really, I mean, it's no big deal. It's just a song I wrote one day, you know?
Right.
But in any case, like, yeah, you don't get to choose how people will react to you. I mean, once you give it to the public and give it to the people, it's theirs, and they're going to interpret it how they interpret it. You can explain it all day long. Oh, this is about, you know, my friend who you know, did this and he's sort of a fun character. This is about when my dad died, you know, but they're going to reinterpret it to make it relevant in their own lives. And then you don't get to choose how they do that. So you got to let go of that as well.
Yeah. You know, like you talk about how, you know, you don't want to make this sound, super hard or difficult or, the pompous stuff. But I think that like when you love something so much, that's when you can nitpick it. And like, I always feel like some people probably think that I'm a pessimist about art or like don't like anything. And it's like, no, I actually love like these songs so much that like, I feel like you're allowed some, you're able to pick out like the little stuff that makes it difficult and, or that you don't like, or whatever the case is.
Sure.
And I think that like you're really onto something about the whole, you love songwriting, but sometimes you don't like it because, I think anytime, like in relation to what I do sometimes writing about somebody is difficult, and it's not even necessarily like, oh, I don't know what to say about this person. It doesn't have to be that. It can be something where like, I like this band so much. I've got like 5 or 6 things I want to say about them right now. And I want to say them all at once. And you can't do that. And it's the frustration of
right.
putting that down and trying to like relay that message. And a lot of times you probably feel this too. I know that a lot of times you can get like a writer's high after writing something, but sometimes you can also just be like spent. You can just kind of be like, oh, I need to go and just, for me, I'm always like, I just need to go watch some trash TV or like play some video games for, 30, 40 minutes.
Absolutely.
Just to not have to think anymore,
You're right, man. I that's absolutely right, man. It's true. And, not always true, but sometimes it's definitely, that can definitely be the case. And I'm not a real outwardly emotional guy, I don't wear my heart on my sleeve, but I do, I like to take my lack of that in my day-to-day life and at least apply it somewhat, to songwriting. And that is a cliche thing to say, but it's not like, I don't treat it like therapy. It's just something I kind of feel like I have to do. And I do love to do. So I'm going to keep doing it. It's weird because times are changing, and people expect the industry and the people expect a lot of content and it's difficult to see how it's always difficult to see how you can make it happen for the rest of your life. That's why I think letting go of the pressure of only being a musician is something that's important for me. It's like, yeah, I'm interested in other stuff too. And this is just another thing I do. Mm-hmm. That's why I love Terry Allen. And I'm not sure if you've had James Steinley on the podcast.
I've talked with James a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, he's Terry Allen. His biggest inspiration is Terry Allen, and James and I talk a lot about that. How it's like, well, hey man, art is art, and then there's everything else. You know what I mean? Right. So, in any case, I just love making music and making art, and that's it. I'm not trying to be hip. I don't dress hip or look cool or really act. I'm kind of boring. I don't have a lot of sex appeal as far as my, personality and like stuff like that goes. I just want to make music. I don't want to, I don't care about running around with certain crowds and stuff like that. If I did, I probably wouldn't, I'd probably be doing things a lot differently, but it's mostly, especially as I've gotten older. When I was younger, when we started Wood and Wire, I was so inexperienced in being in a band. I was so inexperienced. I was a very inexperienced performer. That was basically my first band to be in. And, lots happened since then. I've learned a lot, and I've really found the value in just focusing really hard on the art. And I do. I'm one of there are a lot of musicians, believe it or not. I'm not one of them that don't really like to perform live. Like, it's not their favorite thing to do. And I love to perform. I love the stage. I was an actor. I've done some acting over the years and stuff like that. I love to perform for live audiences. So that's something I really do. I really do love. So I like to focus on making the art, and part of that is expressing it in a live setting in front of people. Maybe that's because I have a bit of an ego. I don't know, but whatever it is, I just like bringing joy to people and giving them entertainment. And I never take it for granted. You know, it's the older I get, the less likely I am to get out of my house and go somewhere. And I don't have kids, but you know, when I do, I can see that being a much more logistically challenging thing. And people come do it to see us all the time. And it's a real honor that people will leave their homes and it says a lot. You know, you forget sometimes, you might take it for granted that people planned, you know, weeks ahead of time, got babysitters, paid for babysitters, paid for dinner, you know, spent a lot of money and took time to get out and come enjoy the music. And
Yeah.
That's what keeps me excited, frankly.
Yeah. You know, like that's something that I've come to learn too on a lot of this, is that, you know, it's very easy to get frustrated with, like, oh, why aren't the masses, like, why aren't you like the biggest band in the world if I think you're the greatest band? And like there's the, why do people listen to, let's just throw Luke Bryan, and why is he like the most famous country artist right now, or whatever the case is. And it's very easy to get frustrated by that kind of thing. But then at some point you realize, man, you know, like I'm just a little bit different than everyone else, because like I just have time to do this. You know, I can listen to records all day, and I can like over-examine this. And a lot of other people don't have the privilege and the bandwidth to, you know, check out all these like quote unquote unknown songwriters who, you know, they're creating really great art and everything, but like, you know, like these people are working 40-hour jobs and going to soccer practice and, you know, everything that goes along with like, you know, raising a family and whatnot. And sometimes, you know, like just, they're not going to be checking out that record necessarily driving to and from work, especially when there's maybe kids in the back seat and whatnot. And, so yeah, like whenever when they do go out and like find these bands and all of that process of, you know, you said like the babysitter and, having to plan out days like that, you know, that makes it special. And that, I think that's important for a lot of artists to understand, or at least appreciate.
Yeah, you nailed it, man. It's you know, it's easy for guys like you and I to forget that the vast majority of people are just dealing with a lot of stuff in their personal lives. And I stopped being bitter about people liking music that I hated a while ago. You know, I finally let go of that. It took me a while, you know, it really did. As a young sort of chest beating guy, I guess back then, I'm like, I just didn't get it, but I don't have bitterness towards it or the people that are making it anymore. You know, it's just, I don't have enough energy for that anymore. You know, I'm lucky to have one person come see Wood and Wire play or me play or whatever. You know, it's all just, you're absolutely right. It's a big privilege to, when someone comes out and does that. And you make a really good point that I haven't necessarily thought about. Like, a lot of people don't have the bandwidth to dig in so deep.
Right. Yeah. Well, because it's like, again, like let's say you have your commute and you are dropping the kids off and at school, and you know, you put on a record that you've been told is, you know, a deep record. Well, you know, like the kids in the back seat talking over it or having their iPhone on blasting over it. Maybe that's not the right proper setting to take in a Terry Allen record or you know what I mean? Like you're getting like freaking you know, people are cutting you off in traffic and like, you know, all the stuff that can like just fuck up your day. Right. And, so it's easy to like, just understand I guess what I'm saying is long story short is I'm sympathetic to all of that kind of stuff. But I think like, again, going back to that whole, you know, it's very, when you're young, it's very easy to be pissed off that like, why isn't, let's just keep on using Terry Allen as an example. Why isn't he like the most known songwriter in the world? You know, and or it's very easy to like be negative. It's very easy to just like talk about all the people on top who are who don't quote unquote deserve it. And like, I think like, again, like what you're kind of saying is it's what I've learned and understood is as I've gotten older, it's so much more rewarding on my end too, to just focus on the stuff I like, the bands I like.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if someone hears this and they discover Wood and Wire this way and they like it afterwards, you know, like that's way more rewarding than, you know, an hour-long rant about the
convincing
industry.
some guy that Luke Bryan sucks. Congratulations.
Right, yeah.
You convinced one guy that Luke Bryan isn't any good. You know, it's not worth our time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny. Like Terry Allen is a great example because guys like you and me and so many of our friends, we're obsessed with him because he's so fearless in his art. You know, he doesn't give a shit if people like it or not. He doesn't give a shit. And it's clear because it is so out there. He's making it for himself and hopes, you know, if other people enjoy it, great. He's doing this thing because that's what he loves. And we have to understand that it's like an artisanal version of music. You know, it's out there. You know, it's like you can't expect everyone to love something like that. You know, like, hey man, you got to listen to Juarez, dude. It's an incredible record. And they've never listened to a record in their life with any spoken word ever, you know? Right. So it's like, wait a minute, this isn't a music record. What is this, you know? So I'm not saying that they can't come around, but we also have to understand, like, some people just don't. It's just like you said, they don't have the bandwidth to take in something like that, you know? And it's cool that there are people out there that do. Yeah. And I hope that, and like I said, like we play bluegrass music, and it's our version of it, and it's different, and it's definitely unique, and there are reasons why it's unique. But you know, I've tried for you know, it's this thing about control. You can only control so much. When I was trying to control more, I just didn't understand why a lot of these Red Dirt events or Texas country events wouldn't throw in a band like us to change it up a little bit. Not that everyone sounds the same or anything, but we would definitely sound way different than anybody. Yeah. I really like a lot of those bands, and I wanted to like work with them and play shows with them, but a lot of their management and a lot of the people that put on a lot of those events, not all of them, but we just don't get invited to stuff like that. And I was kind of bummed about it because it's a really cool, big, and sometimes really raucous group of music fans that really care about music and having a good time, and they're dedicated and they want to come out and enjoy the show. I wanted to tap into that, but I couldn't convince people that make the decisions that they would be like, well, you know, you guys are bluegrass, like people, they're not going to enjoy it. And I don't think that they gave their fans enough credit. I think they would like it a lot, you know, but I can't, I kind of gave up. I kind of just was like, well, look, someone wants us in that world. They'll give us a call and we'll do it. And this isn't a rant about them at all, but it's just another thing to let go of, you know, this sort of idea that you can't control all this stuff. And so anyway, that's sort of a sidebar there, but we put this new record out, and I think it's a listenable record, and I think people will like it. I mean, we make our records pretty loosely. Everything we do is live, you know, and it's all played together, and any experimentation we do in the mixing process, and it's all live stuff, and the feel is really good, and I'm real proud of the songs. And we recorded like 16 songs for this record. We put 9 on it. Billy Bright, our mandolin player, contributed a lot more songs to this record than he has in the past. So I'm super proud of what this record's done, and I hope it opens up more people to our music, you know. But if it doesn't, we're just going to keep doing it anyway. So yeah. I guess it don't really matter.
I wanted to talk to y'all one more time about our new partners at Desert Door and offer up a handful of my favorite ways to drink it. Get you a Mexican Coca-Cola, have a couple of swigs, then pour yourself some Desert Door Oak aged in, toss in a lime wedge or two, or how about this? Pour some Desert Door into a mug, top off the glass with some ginger beer, squeeze in a lime, or for all you ranch water drinkers out there, get you a Topo Chico, take Take a couple of pulls off, and then pour in some Desert Door. Toss in a couple of lime wedges, and now you have a mighty tasty and refreshing ranch water. Remember, Sotol is as versatile as vodka and has a more refined, smooth, and a more complex palate than tequila. It's rich and balanced, and whatever your go-to drink is, it'll make it that much better. And again, it's inherently West Texas. It tastes like home. For more info on Desert Door, check our show notes. All right, that's it for Thomas Mooney's Cocktail Minute. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, well, I've been trying to get back onto the record, but we were in the middle of that great...
Oh, no, I love these kinds of conversations. It gets boring talking about the same shit every time anyway. Yeah. You know what I mean? So this is a great conversation.
What I wanted to actually touch back on is you guys are, I think like there's for most bands, it's the guy singing the songs is the chief lyricist, right? He's the one writing the songs, and everyone else there is catering towards those songs. You guys are a little bit more, there's some more democracy in where a lot of these songs come from. Songs come from all of y'all. Y'all are all contributing to the process. And you mentioned Billy writing a bunch of stuff here. What is that like as far as like the process of you've got something, Billy's got something, you guys are bringing them together. What's the process of like showing the other people in the band these new ideas, and as far as like then making them from just a song that's a just an acoustic song, let's just say for you on the acoustic guitar, to being a wood and wire song?
Yeah, man. Fortunately for us, it's pretty natural. We all come from different musical backgrounds and different inspirations outside of bluegrass. But the bluegrass stuff that we've learned is sort of song forms and ways to jam together and ways to structure jams and stuff like that has really helped in our collaboration. So we all have different styles, and one of the really important things that lends itself to a situation like that where someone brings a new song is that nobody tells anybody what to play. We just trust each other's own styles in that process, so we'll start playing the song, and it's rare that I'll be like, hey, to Billy and Trevor, hey, I want you guys to play this line of notes. They come up with a lot of that stuff. So it's a true democracy, and there's a lot of trust involved. Maybe I don't have the whole song done. Maybe I just have a verse and a chorus, and we'll just sing it over and over until we kind of feel it out. There are all different kinds of ways, but the main thing is that we all trust where we are, our own musical styles as individuals. And that is what ends up being our collective sound. And it's just worked out really beautifully for us. There's not really a band leader. We are all the leaders of our own part of the song. If I wrote it, all the songs I wrote, I wrote the lyrics, sure. But I mean, everybody contributed to the arrangements, and a lot of the melodic lines that the instrumentalists play, they were written by whoever played them, they're all of our songs that we bring are open to interpretation, and the lyrics as well are, hey man, try this lyric. What do you think of this line? Anything can be changed by anybody. And, we just kind of see how it goes, but fortunately for us, it's really natural. But the main thing is that we trust each other's styles, we trust each other stylistically for it to work out. That's not to say we can't, hey, I'm not crazy about that or something like that. But for the most part, it's absolute trust.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned you guys went in with 16 songs, you recorded 16. What is that process of honing in on what the record is versus a collection of 16 songs?
Yeah, good question. And that changes, for us this time. I think there was several on there that we knew we wanted to go, but I think we also wanted to keep it around 40 minutes. So we all just took some time to listen to everything, came up with what we each thought was the best 40 minutes or the most cohesive 40 minutes. And, between us three and our co-producer and engineer, we came up with 4 or 5 different versions, and it could be steered. I mean, stylistically, we could have made 3 different records. There'd be crossover on some of the songs, but could have felt differently. But it was just a process of voting and talking and arguing a little bit, and voting and talking and arguing and civilly, like people do.
Right.
And it kind of came up with what we thought was the coolest 41 minutes or whatever. And we also kind of harkened back to the old days. Some of our favorite records are like 30 minutes long, Mm-hmm. So lyrically and singing songs, we had a really strong 30 minutes, 32 minutes. That could have been a cool short, a full record, but maybe by today's standards, people expect a little longer. But really, if you look back, it's a lot of those old Willie Nelson records, just about anything. Redheaded Stranger is like 32 minutes long or something.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and one of my favorite psychedelic rock albums, Frank Zappa's Apostrophe, is 31 minutes long, and it feels like it's an hour long because it's so cool. But anyways, so we really had a record of these. Then we had this tune, Clamp Chute, which is a 9-minute instrumental song, not necessarily for everybody's bag, but we recorded that song for fun. Like, we were just in the studio. It's a song that Billy wrote, and we were just jamming on it. We recorded it, and the vibe, that's what you hear, is just us playing it without even really the intention of using it. So we kind of felt like, as we were deciding what to go on, and we kind of thought it'd be fun. We kind of had this cool eight songs that made up a little over half an hour of music, and some records are that long. We almost had a complete record there. And we could have added some songs that were really cool and good recordings, but they might not have felt like they belonged. And then we decided, well, let's just throw this epic instrumental in there, and the people who like that kind of stuff will really like it, and the people that don't will move on to the next record or something, So, and there's also sort of goes back to the psychedelic side we all have amongst ourselves. We all like, like everybody does, the old psychedelic rock records or something. I don't know. But they took a lot of risks back then, even though all the records were going on to vinyl, and they really and truly were only limited to 42 minutes at the most, unless they wanted to potentially compromise the sonic quality of the record. There's certainly exceptions to that rule, but that was a big factor in people making those old records. But it didn't stop them from taking risks and extending some of their jams, throwing in a tune that might be a little longer, They just wanted to make the coolest thing. And back then there weren't CDs, there weren't track numbers necessarily. They're just side A and side B. And most records were between this 30 and 40 minutes long. And it was just a journey you took. So you weren't worried about the number of tracks and stuff like that. It was just what was the coolest journey you were going to send people on. So I think collectively, through a series of voting and discussions, that's kind of where we sort of leaned on and ended up with. And as a result, we have some extra songs now we can potentially release. We recorded a Todd Snyder song that I think turned out pretty cool, but didn't quite fit. We may just release that as a single one day, because people love Todd Snyder, as they should, and,
right.
And there's some other songs, and honestly, like, several of the songs we cut were my songs, but we're a band, I mean, this is a band. This isn't Tony Kamel and Wooden Wire. Like, I was more like, hey, we should cut these songs. I think this group, they don't quite fit, And so, I mean, it's a democracy for sure. And some of the conversations can be difficult, but it's part of the pain you go through that makes it all worth it. And we've went through that on the last record too. And it's a different vibe on the last record, and it paid off, it worked out. And hopefully for this one, it pays off as well.
Yeah. There's like 3 different directions I want to go, but I'm trying to figure out which one I should say first. One, I think a lot of times when a record ends, bands try and end it on a solemn or a poignant note. But there's these records that I can't think of any off the top of my head, but they're out there where they do end on like an instrumental like this, where It is a little bit longer. And what I've always thought, and this may never have been the intention for a lot of these bands, but what I always like, or sometimes these instrumental breaks happen mid record. Regardless, though, I think like a lot of times what I like about those is they're, for me, like a moment to step back and kind of think about what was played beforehand. Like, you know what I mean? Before you move on to the next record or whatever the case is, or the next batch of songs. And I think as far as like a listener goes, I think that's sometimes a good thing. It's kind of like I don't want to say a palate cleanser, but like kind of serves that same little like, hey, now like it's time for you to just sit there and listen to this music while thinking about the other songs as well, and think about like what the record is. You know what I mean? I think that's these, maybe like I said, unintentional moments that help people process what they've just listened to. So
sure. And and also just for us and for what we do as a band, it's part of our show. It's part of our live show to have some jam sections, and we don't go off for long periods of time, several times a set, like a lot of jam grass or jam bands do. But it is part of our show, is showcasing some of our love for jamming with each other, and that's kind of why we wanted that one on there too. And I fought for it. We all did. It was a fun. I thought it was a really fun way to end the record, and I thought, man, I almost want to put this on there at the end because I think some people might not like it. It's like I like it, so let's do it. It's okay. It's weird. It's a risk. Let's just take it.
Yeah. And also like you mentioned how a lot of these records that we've grown to love that are from a time where the main thing that you bought was vinyl. I think that obviously for a long stretch of time, whenever vinyl was not in style, was not the main format, it did change the way bands made records as far as what a record was, how a record was put together, the track listing, all that stuff. But since vinyl has this renaissance period right now, I think what's really interesting is seeing how some bands are again being influenced by that format and thinking more about how a record is. Let's keep it in that I guess the right amount of time, and like think about the instead of track listing 1 through 9, thinking about it side A, side B. I think that's really an interesting thing that a lot of bands from this time have not necessarily had to think about until now.
That's exactly right. And it's a good thing. In my opinion, it's a great thing because, that's the right amount of time. You can send people on a really nice, concise journey. I mean, there are really badass records out there, double records that are long and cool, but for the most part, it's like, man, I personally want to hear the strongest stuff you've got done in 40 minutes or less, maybe just over 40. And I can listen to it in one sitting, and that is enough for me. That's just enough for me to digest well and really let it sink in. It's like, cool, I love it. Now I can listen to it again without having to block off an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever,
Right.
So, and I think that, and I agree with you completely, the resurgence of vinyl has added that new layer of how are we going to formatting this, the way your record is going to be made. And I think that's definitely good. And it you got these songs, and it can be a difficult conversation amongst musicians, producers, or whoever's working on cutting songs off a record. That can be a difficult decision to make, but it's worth it if it's going to make it the most solid group of songs. And having that limitation, I think, will only help in the future.
Yeah. It's a little bit of this like weird concept that I feel is that sometimes when you set up a box, you set up parameters of what something is, it makes you be more creative versus more, You know, like the whole, like, you're thinking to think outside the box. Sometimes you set up those parameters of a box, if that makes sense.
Sure.
It works the
Sure.
other way around. And I think that, like, working within the parameters of 40 minutes, side A, side B, and all of that kind of stuff, it can help be more creative, and it can make you just think about your own art in a different way. So I think it's all, like I said, I think it's a good thing. So
Yeah, it makes you create a complete package as opposed to the temptation of just shoving as many songs as you can on there, you know? So,
yeah, you know, one of the things I wanted to bring up too was you guys have done some stuff with Bruce Robinson, The Next Waltz. What is that like? What's when you're a band and you're going over there and working on something with him, being invited over there to create something? What is that like for you guys going into a setting like that?
it's really cool. And Bruce has been great. And, you know, we all admire Bruce a lot. But he puts you at ease right away. You know, I mean, he's super fun to work with. The studio, as you know, is really neat. It's totally analog. There's not a single computer in there. He's got some really cool equipment and some great engineers helping him run it. So as far as like working with Bruce, the sort of, you know, we were never necessarily enamored with him because he put us at ease so quickly, you know, and then it just became like we were buddies and working on music together. So that's one of the great parts about it. He's a humble guy. He's a humble guy that's really passionate about bringing back some of these things we're talking about when it comes to vinyl, just these old school ways of making kick-ass records. And we related to him on that right away. So, you know, we felt like equals from the beginning. And that's what's really cool about working out there. And, you know, he's a good producer and he knows what to do. You know, in our case, we're a band. We have stuff worked out amongst ourselves. So his job as a producer, when we're doing something out there, we've done a few songs out there with him, is just to be like, hey, that was great. You know, he doesn't change the arrangements that much. He just kind of trusts that we all work really well together. And we've been out there as sidemen before, working with other artists, and he takes a much stronger role in formulating the song and telling people what they should play and stuff like that. So he's also a new producer. He's learning how to be a producer at the same time, and I think he's headed down a really cool path for making some really great records. He's made a great Bruce and Kelly record out there. James Steinley's record that came out of there was really neat. He's also doing some management stuff for Charlie Crockett, and he's a great guy to work with. And I've had the fortunate pleasure of going out there just on my own to write with him some, which is a really neat experience. And, you know, I have imposter syndrome as bad as anybody. You know, I've been in plenty of situations where I'm like, man, I don't know why I'm here. You know,
yeah,
I feel like they're going to figure me out so fast, you know, but I sit down and Bruce is like really easygoing about it all. And he's honest about his opinions on certain things. And so I know he's not just yanking my chain when he likes something, which I think is really important. And I don't do a lot of co-writing, but I've been doing some with him and I think it's great. And I do a lot of co-writing with Billy nowadays, our mandolin player. He hasn't done a lot of co-writing, so that's a really cool relationship as well. And but in any case, working out at the bunker with Bruce is a lot of fun. And you know, it almost feels like he hasn't done any of the stuff that he has. You know what I mean? Like he puts you at ease right away, and you kind of forget that he wrote these songs and has done this stuff, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. Puts people at ease really quickly.
Yeah, you know, like what. I think like the thing that you can kind of see, especially in the Next Waltz series, as far as these singles and these, you know, these just, I don't necessarily want to call them one-off sessions, but in a lot of ways, you know, you're working with a lot of different bands over the year and putting out these singles and these videos out, and I think like it's a diverse mix, but you kind of feel that common thread between them as far as, the good songs, but also just the easy vibes. It kind of feels like when you watch these videos, it's like, oh yeah, this is why bands play, because it's fun, and it's just like the environment is just a right setting.
Yeah, and sometimes those sessions, not Bruce's sessions specifically, but sometimes when you throw together people for something like that, doesn't always go well. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's awkward, and the band's having a hard time grooving if you don't play together often. But the vibe in that place is that's what's great about that spot, and what Bruce is doing is that it's vibes first. He's such a vibey guy. He's like, it's got to be good vibes, it's all about the vibe. And he means that on a record standpoint. And that's absolutely right. Making records, for me, my favorite records have weird stuff in them, have mistakes in them, there's just vibes that the vibes of the record are above the perfection of the recording. You know what I mean? So that's something he's trying to accomplish there. We did our Woodshed Sessions Volume 2, which is us playing other songs. In this case, we're sort of leaning heavily on John Hartford's repertoire. Inspired by that, we did a tune by John Hartford called Tall Buildings, which is a beautiful song. And we recorded all that out at the bunker. And at the end of the song, okay, so Bruce just tried this thing out. He's got a 16 track or 32, I don't know how many, but he armed all of the tracks. So he put all of us, we were just standing around mics, that's how you do it. That's how we do it there. Mm-hmm. He put all of us on every single track. He armed every single track of the tape. So how it normally works is you just put one or two tracks on each person and they go along the tape, and you leave the other tracks open for overdubbing if you want to. In this case, he armed all 16 or 32 or whatever it is. I don't know how many he's got, but he armed them all. So the track feels really full, and the mics were pulling a lot of data. At the end of the song, you can hear these birds chirping outside, and it just kind of like sounds kind of perfect. And you have to kind of listen to it. But my favorite stuff are when things like that happen. You just leave it in, or someone says something at the end of the song, and we just leave it in. We didn't do any of that. We didn't leave anything in on this last record, but we were doing everything live and sort of, on the fly. But in any case, like, that's the kind of place that Bruce's studio is. And that's the kind of guy he is too, where he's just really trying to bring back good vibes and good sounds on records.
Yeah. Like that's something actually I talked with Coulter about with his last record, is because he leaves some intro and outro kind of bookends some songs with, just them talking, or them like the stuff that you would typically cut off. And, that was something that we talked about. It was like, that just sets the mood for a record. That helps like create a vibe of like, sometimes I think like you can think of a band being super like way over serious, and it's like this kind of maybe puts some listeners at ease, and
sure,
because obviously like there's plenty of songwriters who have written serious, sad songs, and those songs are serious, but that person isn't full on ready to off themselves, or what I mean, they're not just the worst hang, they're fun. And I think like all that I love, and I do love finding those little things too, as far as like things that you have to listen for, and then you kind of go like, did I hear that? Like, let me go back and
dude, Coulter's record's awesome. That studio, Yellow Dog Studios, is a great studio, and Adam, the owner and the engineer there, is fantastic. And and what was cool about the way they did things, real open too. And the bleed, there's this thing of, you probably know what bleed is. It's when in a lot of, I don't know, really heavily produced records, there's no bleed between the instruments. So everything's done on their own. Even if people are playing all at the same time, they might be all in isolation booths. And the way we like to do it, and the way they did it on Coulter's record too, is like, you let like the sounds of the room reverberate throughout the room, so that, you hear other instruments come through Coulter's mic or the Dobro mic or something like that, or you know what I mean? So, and those are the kind of things that a lot of people weren't doing for a long time. I think that there's more of a push for that kind of thing now. There's was sort of this analog. I don't know. People like to do things in analog more and more, which is great, and use tape machines. But in any case, that's something they did out in Yellow Dog there that I think turned out really nice and was definitely the way to go. And that's something we tried to do as well at the Zone, where we do ours in Dripping Springs. But I really feel like that's an important thing. And you're absolutely right about it setting the listener at ease, because it humanizes us.
Yeah.
It humanizes the people they're listening to as just guys or men or women who are just trying to figure this shit out like you are, you know? So I think Adam told me like, there was like a screen door on, I have to listen to it again, but someone like opened a door during one of Coulter's songs. I have to look at the text or whatever.
Yeah, there is.
And they just left it in, you know, it's like, that's awesome. Yeah. That's a great way to do it, you know? And you have laughs. Sometimes you have like a weird take and you laugh at the end, or you say something weird, or, you know, when you're checking the mics, you say stuff for the engineer and you say weird stuff. And sometimes those are fun things to throw in and have fun with.
Yeah. You know, I brought up the screen door to Coulter and what's, of course, like the screen door, that's part of the, that humanizes the song, but also, and the artist. But, what I found real funny was in the liner notes on that song, it's like, vocals, acoustic guitar, Coulter Wall, and then opening screen door play, or like, I think it's like creaky screen door played by Blake Berglund. I
love that.
And that's just like, just like a little, you know, one of them little Easter egg kind of things. And, going back to the bleed though, like that's what creates such a warmth and a texture to these records that I feel like when it's there, sometimes you can't really pinpoint. Like, I think like maybe the common listener maybe you can't pinpoint what that is, that makes it like that, but that's what it is. That's why a lot of people like those kind of records is that warmth and that, just a little bit of that hazy texture. I don't necessarily even want to call it hazy, but you get what I'm saying. Like it's,
it sets it apart from the plastic bullshit that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, man, I've made records where we were all isolated and everything's perfect and lined up. And that's something to be said for that. But as a more experienced musician now, it's like, that's the only way I want to do it now. And at least for stuff that I'm, my name's on. I mean, I've played on people's records, you know, where I just show up, they're not even there. That's no big deal. I'm not hating on that, but for me and my part, my creative side needs to have that, because you're right. It creates something that you can't. The average listener couldn't like say, this is what this is, but it creates that vibe and that flavor that most people couldn't pinpoint. It just feels good and sounds good.
Yeah. You know, on this last record here that you guys did was, you know, you mentioned you guys recorded it in Dripping Springs. You guys are all like Austin based. Like what is it like recording out there where, you're, you know, it's a little bit out of town and you can get away, but also have like maybe the comforts of home. Do you guys try and like still get it in a setting where, it's not necessarily like a location record that you guys went off and recorded in, across the country or something like that, but do you try and at least, I guess, maybe set it up that way for y'all, or like what is it like going in and recording the record?
Actually, the opposite. We really didn't want to go to Nashville. We put our first two records in Nashville. We did them in Nashville, and that was great. We worked with a great guy. It wasn't some big fancy studio, you know. It was just a good vibe dude named Eric. He was awesome, but we didn't want to go back to Nashville. We just really figured, and we have nothing against Nashville, but we just like figured logistically and also just for us, like we live here and there's plenty of great studios here. For what we do, we could do it at a lot of different places. And the Zone is in Dripping Springs. I live in Dripping Springs. Billy lives in Wimberley. Dominic lives in Austin, but Trevor lives in San Marcos. So we're all, you know, around the Austin area within 30 miles or so.
Right.
But for us, we didn't do it all at once. We work on the songs. through rehearsals and woodshed sessions and just really get them down. We test a lot of them out on stage. Then when we went to the studio, it was just, let's play the song. We just play it. We adjust little things here and there, but like, it was a matter of getting a good take and working on that, and so we would go intermittently. We did some last January or January 2019, I guess, and we did some after the long tour in the fall, and then we did some in the early part of 2020. And it was just like when we were ready, we'd go in and do it. So there was no pressure. And I think for us as a band, that's another important part is doing the stuff when we're ready, and it saves us studio time. And Pat Manske, the co-producer on this one and the head engineer out there, is awesome, and they have really cool stuff. And it leaves us room to experiment with sounds. So we're not experimenting too much with our song forms. We're kind of done with, right? So we used some really cool old analog equipment. We went into a tape machine, and we used old analog delays and like boxes, that were built in the 70s. They're not like a delay pedal or a computer plug-in. I don't know how to work that stuff. Billy and Pat do, And we experiment with putting the mandolin through a old Fender Twin to get and then put the Fender Twin in a booth by itself as sort of a reverb chamber or a tremolo chamber. And sometimes we'd run the room mic through the Fender Twin, or Trevor's banjo mic through a Fender Twin, just to see what it sounded like and experiment with stuff like that. So having a studio at home where we can go when we're ready, it frees us up of any pressure or any worry about losing time. It gives us the freedom to experiment with stuff like that, with sounds and interesting ways of setting the record apart sonically.
Yeah, a little bit more luxury versus like, hey, we're flying in and we've got to get this done by the end of the week,
Yeah, and that studio is every bit as good or not better than just about anywhere I've worked in Nashville. I don't like working in those big, fancy, high-dollar studios. There's no reason for them anymore. I mean, I shouldn't say that. That's a blanket statement, but it's just not totally necessary. So for anyone out there that's listening that wants to make a record, you can make a great record in a great studio without going far away and spending tons and tons and tons of money, and by the way, the Zone is some of the finest equipment you can get. And I don't want to set it down as like a mid-grade studio. Robert O'Keen works out there, Ray Wiley Hubbard, all kinds of guys. Midland has been out there some who's, there is like the most, I don't know how I would describe Midland sound, but the place is capable of doing much more of a poppy kind of thing and much more of a controlled kind of thing. But it also has, it's just a really awesome studio that has all kinds of capabilities. And some of my favorite records have been made out there. Wayne Hancock works out there. I mean, it's a great place.
Yeah. It's one of those things where every kind of record can be a great record, and every kind of record can be a bad record as far as the setting goes. And
you're right.
Like it's those records that you go off to record at. I obviously like a destination record. A great setting is outside of El Paso at Sonic Ranch. That's like a really great kind of destination place. And that kind of
man, I want to check that place out, man. I've heard so much about it, and I really love El Paso. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. But like also, it's you can make really fucking cool records in your backyard too.
Absolutely.
So like it's again, like everything can be great, and every record can be. It's just the time and place for everybody. Like what works for. So, yeah.
There's a really cool record that came out, and you may not have heard. I mean, you have all kinds of what I like, and I just started listening to your podcast recently. Frankly, I'm sorry, I should have been listening this whole time. But what I like about your podcast, you have all kinds of different artists on there. You really run the gamut, and that's really cool. You may not. I don't know if you've heard of this guy, Cahalan Morrison. He plays with this band called Western Centuries, and he's a Northwest guy. He's from New Mexico, but he does work with this guy, Eli West, in the Northwest. So he's not a Texas guy, but he made this record in this church in New Mexico. It's just him, and there's a bunch of there's an Irish feel to it. You may not dig it, but There's a bunch of a cappella songs, and his writing is amazing, but it's just him, and it's like, it's really one of the coolest records I've heard in a while. And you should it's only on Bandcamp, but I'll send it to you to check out. But goes to show you can make like a special thing. You don't need a lot to do it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things where like we have the luxury of living in 2020 where you can make a really, it may not be it may not be technically the most perfect record, but you can make a really cool record in your bedroom if you really put in the hard work. And
you're damn right, dude. You really can.
So
you really can.
Yeah.
James Steinley, again, I've mentioned him several times. He put out a crazy, like Terry Allen-esque record called Man from the Mountain, I think is what it's called, earlier this year. And Juliette McConkie, who's his girlfriend, sang on it. Mm-hmm. She's fantastic. Her new record's awesome too. Anyway, he did that in like a night, and I've listened to that like 50 times. It's amazing. So anyway, you're absolutely, and he literally did it in his bedroom, and it's awesome.
Yeah. Juliet, she won the Blue Light singer-songwriter competition last year. And it was one of those things where right when you first heard her play, it was like, I hate to like say this, but it's one of those things where you heard her play and you go, oh, she's going to win this.
Awesome.
Like everyone goes,
well, she deserves it. Yeah. She's amazing. And I love her sort of, I really like her voice. You know, I like that really sort of light, whispery, I don't know how to put it, floaty voice like she has. And she's really got a nice voice. You should check out that Man from the Mountain thing. That's the first time I heard her sing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy shit. You know, I texted James. I was like, dude, she stole the show, bro. Sorry. You know?
But she's really, there's like a crispness to it. It's like that light mountain air kind of crystal clear kind of cleanness to it that it just really puts you at ease.
I agree.
So
I agree.
Yeah, man. You know, it's been really great talking with you today.
Yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Okay, that does it for this one. Y'all go check out the newest album from Wood and Wire. It's called No Matter Where It Goes From Here. Check out our partners over at Desert Door and the Blue Light Live. All right, I'll see y'all next week for more new slang.